About a year ago, an anime came out that I thought would change the landscape of the medium. It was the adaptation of one of the greatest manga by one of the greatest mangaka of all time, set in the universe of one of the most popular manga franchises ever, animated by a brand new studio founded by one of the most influential and respected individuals in the world of Japanese animation, and licensed by the most popular streaming platform on the planet. It had every premise to be groundbreaking, to truly leave a mark on the industry, but instead it had one of the most underwhelming releases I've ever seen for a show of this caliber. It generated no hype at all, and as of today, not even a year after the release, no one except a very small group of enthusiasts is even talking about it anymore. It's like this anime never existed. Pluto is an incredible manga, written and illustrated by none other than Naoki Urasawa, one of the greatest mangaka to ever live. And the story of how it came to be is just as unbelievable. If you go on the Wikipedia page for manga, you'll find a lot about the history of the medium, and you'll see that its origins are old, but also quite uncertain. What is certain, however, is that the moment manga became what we know and love today is in the post-war period. And it's mostly thanks to one man, Osamu Tezuka. Tezuka is pretty much the inventor of everything we consider the standard in Japanese comics today, known as the godfather of manga, probably the most influential mangaka of all time. Tezuka created a medium and made an entire generation fall in love with it. And one of the children of that generation was Naoki Urasawa. At the age of 4, he read Astro for the first time, and his world was forever changed. Now fast forward to 2002. Tezuka has been gone for a while, and Urasawa is now a great mangaka, already one of the best to ever do it. And he decides to reread his favorite arc in Astro an arc named The Greatest Robot on Earth. However, when he's done with it, he feels like something is wrong. It's like some scenes are missing, and some others are different from what he remembered. But soon he realizes that nothing is wrong with the manga. It's just that when he was a kid reading those pages, he had created his own version of the story in his head, adding scenes, characters, and context with his overflowing imagination. And he has an idea. He's a great mangaka, he knows what makes a good story, and so he decides to contact a freelance editor he knows, and he sends him the version of the story he had envisioned as a kid. His initial idea, in fact, wasn't to be the one to put the story into paper. He was already working on another huge project at the time, and he was already extremely overworked, to the point of being physically sick. But when the editor read his idea, he couldn't believe his eyes. He was ecstatic and implored Urasawa to be the one to bring it to life. It wasn't easy for Urasawa to accept, because of the various projects he had going on, but also because Tezuka was his idol, and Astro his favorite manga growing up. Taking this job would mean having to put his hands on something that him and pretty much all of Japan considered sacred, the Bible of manga. But after a few sleepless nights, he messages the editor. He had decided to do it. It is true that if the project failed, he would become public enemy number 1 in Japan, and that no one, including himself, would ever forgive him. But there was a chance he could succeed. And if that happened, it would be the realization of a dream, the coronation of a path he had started when he was 4 years old. And he was willing to bet on himself. From his own words in an interview, the idea was just too good to let somebody else do it. The next step to proceed would be to get the rights to Astro and that would prove to be more challenging than initially thought. Even when you are Naoki Urasawa, you can't simply walk in the office of Tezuka Productions and pretend to get the rights to one of the most popular manga of all time, just because you decided to make your fanfiction official. He first had to meet with Makoto Tezuka, Osamu's son, to explain his idea and show him some drafts. But unlike what he thought, he received an immediate rejection. Makoto wasn't so sure about giving other artists permission to work on what his father had dedicated his entire life to. and he felt like he already had too many projects lined up. But once he had set his mind to it, there was no way to stop Urasawa. And after he asked over and over again, with different drafts and plans each time, Makoto finally accepts. But he has a condition. This new manga couldn't be a copy of Tezuka's work. The style had to be different, the plot had to be different, and even the character designs had to be different. This had to be Naoki Urasawa's manga, his personal view of Astro Boy. Urasawa accepts, and it's all set. On September 5th, 2003, the first chapter of Pluto was released, and it's an immediate success. It went on for 6 years, selling over 8.5 million copies, a huge amount for a seinen comic. It won a ton of awards, including, funnily enough, the Osamu Tezuka Cultural Prize, and it's a success with both the audience and the critics. It's incredible, and it proved to be one of Urasawa's greatest manga. So, what is Pluto? Pluto is a story set in a futuristic world in which robots are so advanced that they have become part of society and coexist with humans. They've gained rights, and some of them even look exactly like human beings. The only things that make them different are that they can't feel emotions in the way a human can, that they are still controlled by humans in some ways, and that they can't kill humans no matter what. Among these robots, there are 7 so advanced and powerful that they stand in a tier of their own as the 7 great robots of the world. And the story revolves around them. The protagonist is Gesicht, a Europol detective called to solve a case regarding a string of robot and human deaths around the world. So Pluto is essentially a murder mystery, or at least it starts as one, with Gesicht having to solve what is an apparently simple case for a detective of his caliber. But it quickly goes much deeper than that. The robots being killed are the 7 great robots, and the humans are all scientists connected to them. The killer leaves traces behind, and it all starts to lead back to a war all the characters took part in years before the start of the story. You're fed information little by little, and you can start putting the pieces together. Things that seemed unimportant become crucial. And the stories of all these different characters come together in a beautiful, intricate climax. It's a story full of powerful themes, war and its consequences, both on the population who experiences it and those who commit the acts, racism and the way it's perpetrated and deeply rooted in society, and what it means to be a family, and ultimately, to be human. This is a story about robots with the ultimate goal of making you think about humanity. And what's beautiful is that to see all of this, you don't have to delve deep into its meaning and symbolism. It's all extremely in your face. This story isn't scared to be political. These are Urasawa's ideas, and you will face them. This is literally the KKK, and this is literally the Iraq War. This guy is the President of the United States, and this is Saddam Hussein. This story is blatantly full of meaning, and it breaks the barrier of fiction. It speaks to you. It's one of the hardest hitting anime you will ever watch. And Pluto manages to do all of this without leaving behind the soul of the original Astro Boy. In an interview, Urasawa said, "The greatest robot on Earth arc isn't about a righteous robot that takes down the bad robots. It's about the emptiness of war." When I first read it, I felt like I had been told a very deep story. Something meant for adults. Pluto is what Urasawa saw when he first read the story as a child. It is different from the original, be it for the art style, completely different and way more complex. For the type of story it is, that goes from being pretty straightforward and aimed at a shonen demographic, to being a complex murder mystery with plot twists and revelations each chapter that asks deep questions about the morality of war and the origin of human nature. Or for the characters. Many of the robots in the original manga didn't really serve any purpose, while in Pluto each of them is a deep character with a lot to offer to the plot. North number 2, who was just this funny looking robot with 6 arms, is now a layered character, deeply troubled by his horrible actions in the war, who's looking for redemption and peace, learning how to play the piano. Brando was just a wrestler robot looking for revenge, but now he's a scarred veteran who decided to find his purpose in raising a family with his loving wife. And Gazekt, who was this thing, has become one of the greatest protagonists you will ever have the pleasure to encounter. But it still manages to remain that same story at heart. Pluto's got it all. Incredible world building, a deep and intricate plot despite a somewhat lacking ending, amazingly fascinating characters, and even pleasant and fluid animation. Yes, the CGI is a bit wonky at times, but the direction and the cinematography are truly impeccable, with shots that look straight out of the movies. The music is beautiful, and there are even some surprising Sakuga moments here and there. And yet, despite all of this, it was watched just slightly more than this anime about a guy who gets reincarnated into the dog of his classmate, who's a bit too much into pets. Sometimes you have no explanation for the weird things that happen in the anime and manga community, but this failure could have easily been avoided. Pluto was never meant to be the most popular anime ever. The manga has been out for over 15 years at this point, so there wasn't much hype around it anymore. It's a story clearly aimed at young adults, not your typical battle shonen that everyone is immediately drawn to. And it needs a bit of reasoning and reflecting to be enjoyed to its fullest. Not a very common thing anymore. But with just a few changes here and there, it could have been much more than what it was. It's 2024, and Netflix continues releasing anime in the same way they release Western shows, refusing to understand that the two are not the same. Pluto came out on the 26th of October, 3 weeks after the beginning of the fall anime season, and so it doesn't appear anywhere as a fall anime. I personally know a lot of people who before the season starts go on sites like MyAnimeList or AniList to choose a list of anime to watch for the season, and Pluto could have easily been on there. But it's not. The release schedule and the episode structure was equally terrible. Once again, Netflix refused to release this anime as an anime, and it was published all at once in 8 one-hour-long episodes. Pluto was born and died on a random day of October with no hype at all surrounding it. And it's sad. What could have been one of the most important anime of the 2020s is now pretty much already forgotten. There is still a tiny bit of hope left, as if there's one good thing about it being a Netflix production, is that it's going to stay on the platform for as long as it exists. And so maybe it will eventually gain some popularity over the years. At least, I hope so. But for now, this is the anime masterpiece that no one cared about. And if you didn't watch it, I really think you'll enjoy it no matter who you are. It's a story that is very easy to resonate with. It's hopeful, humanitarian and anti-war, themes we really need in this period in history. And it's also something we probably won't ever get to experience again. Back in 2019, Urasawa was asked what advice he would give to an artist who wanted to adapt one of his works like he did with Astro Boy. And he replied, "Don't do it." Even though he understood the responsibility of the undertaking, the pressure and intense struggle was so much that he would never do it again, and would advise a young artist to avoid it as well. So, most likely, a project like Pluto won't ever be seen again in the industry. And not watching it would mean losing out on a one-of-a-kind experience. Pluto was incredible, and I really hope that its failure won't put an end to Urasawa's manga getting anime adaptations. After all, his greatest work has yet to grace the anime medium.